Hello and welcome to this video on access modifiers in Java. In this video, we'll be learning about what are access modifiers, the different types of access modifiers, and how to use them using simple examples. So let us dive into the topic. What is access modifiers? In Java, access modifiers are used to set the accessibility of classes, interfaces, variables, methods, constructors, data members, and the setter methods. Let us understand the types of access modifiers. Before you learn about types of access modifiers, you should be familiar with the topic of packages. So now coming to the four access modifier keywords in Java that are default, private, public, and protected. First, default. So declarations are visible only within the package. The packages are considered private. The next is private. The declarations are visible within the class only. Protected. Declarations are visible within the package or all classes. Public. Declarations are visible everywhere. So we'll learn in depth one by one using simple examples. The first type is default access modifier. We have taken the previous video's example to understand them better. So if you do not explicitly specify any access modifier classes and methods and variables etc., then by default, the default access modifier is considered. For example, these variables are not specified among any of these access modifiers. Now I can try to access this variable num1. So how can I do that? I'll initialize my class first. My class t1 is equal to new of my class, and we need to initialize our constructors 10 comma 20. So now I have initialized, and if I try to access the num1 value t1 dot num, one. So now let me try to print this program. As you can see, the value 10 is now printed. So if I try to have a method void message and try to print that, now I've initialized the method inside my class, and I'll also try to call that method dot message. Now if I try to print this out, by default I'll be able to access these functions and variables. So the class is visible to all the other classes and belong to the default package. However, if you try to use this class in another class outside of the default package, we'll get some complication errors. The next is private access modifier. When the variables and methods are declared inside private, they cannot be accessed outside of the class. For example, let's take the same example. So for example, if I place my num as a private variable, what happens? An error is thrown. The field num1 is not visible, meaning the value num1 can now only be accessed within this class. So what does it mean? Let me try to print this out and let's check what error that we receive. As you can see, num1 has private access in my class. Since I've assigned this value as private, I won't be able to access it. But if I try to print my num2 value, let's check what happens. So, as you can see, the value 20 and hello world is printed because num2 is not inside my private variable. Now, what can be done for me to access my num1 value outside of this class? I have to initialize a method void get num2. I'll initialize a method and I'll provide a return value. Since this is an integer, I'll initialize as an int method and return the value num2. So now for me to access my num1 value, which is a private variable, I need to use this term. So I'll just do t1.get num2 and open close brackets. So now by doing this, what happens? The value is accessed within the class inside my get num1 and it is returned through that. So I'm not directly accessing my num1. Instead, I'm accessing through a function. Now let me try to print the value. As you can see, my value 10 is now printed even though it is a private variable. So the error was generated because we are trying to access the private variable of the class from our main class. So the next is protected access modifier. To understand protected access modifier, we need to understand the concepts of packages and inheritance. So we'll be dealing with protected later. The thing that you need to remember is when methods and data members are declared protected, we need to access them within the same package as well as the subclasses. So protected is similar to private, but it doesn't change any aspect of default if it's within the same program. So the next one that we'll be looking at is public access modifier. When methods, variables, classes, and so on are declared public, then we can access them from anywhere. The public access modifier has no scope restrictions. So let us take this example. If I want to access my variable m1, I can just provide them as public. So if I provide them as public, now I'll be able to access them even without calling the function. I can just call my num1. Now, if I try to print this out, I get the value 10 hello world. So the use of public is that I'm providing permission to all my functions, classes, and constructors. I can even set up my class as public so I can access it outside of my program. So this is the main use case of public. So if it is public, I can now also access my message. As you can see, since it's public, I'm able to access this function. What if I initiate them as private? Now if I try to access the program, I'll be thrown an error. Message as private access in my class. So these access modifiers enable us to protect our programs from what the user can see and cannot see. A classic example is getting others marks. So if you set up a class where it contains the values and marks of students, each student gets access to only view their marks and their scores, and they will be completely blocked from accessing other marks through these access modifiers. So to summarize, access modifiers are mainly used for encapsulation. We'll be seeing about what encapsulation is in the further videos. It helps us to control what part of a program can access the members of a class so that the misuse of data can be prevented. This is about access modifiers. Hope this video was helpful. Thank you.